And I'm Angela Brzeski. I am your host this evening, and we have some great stories to share with you this evening. So, we're getting back to balance, especially during this season. It is hard to find. And so, with you, we have a couple of fun testimonies. So, our first up tonight is Ashley Geigel, and she's going to be sharing her testimony. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, hey guys. So tonight I was just going to talk a little bit about Vital, everyone's favorite green packet, right? Um, the When we first started with Vital, we were, like everyone, a little scared of the fact that it was green. However, what it was doing for our family was just incredible. So I typically take this just for like my daily multivitamin. However, now like today I'm having a little stuffiness with just the seasonal stuff going on. And so I've been taking two to kind of help combat that inflammation and get all the things that don't belong in my body out of me. But then there's like my 10-year-old son who used to struggle a lot with nighttime stomach aches, which stemmed um, from anxiousness when he was younger. My youngest daughter, his sister, had cancer, and so he would create an ulcer in his stomach is what happened. And we noticed that when he is consistent with the Vital, he does a whole lot better in the daytime and in the evening. And then that also brings us back to my daughter that had cancer. She was 10 months old at the time, and so chemo, she had 4 rounds of chemotherapy, and now that she is 8 and thriving, we use the Vital with her too to just kind of help rebuild her body. And then there's my youngest, that's 4, and she seriously has drank the Vital since she was 3 months old. So it's just normal to her. But even my husband and I, like, he's kind of on the same boat as me. We're just kind of drinking it nutritionally, and we've just really seen a difference in our immunity. Like when we get this stuffiness, we don't seem to get it as severe as others. So our whole family just really loves our Vital drink. So
Thanks so much for sharing, Ashley. I am also a believer of that 2 Vital a day whenever somebody else in my family is sick. So I definitely am on that bandwagon as well. All right. So the next to ask yourself, am I focusing on the whole body or just symptoms? So a lot of times we just want to go ahead and just treat that acute symptom when a lot of times, if we really open up the full thought process and think about what else am I addressing? Is it a whole body thing? And what's going on? So we have Dr. Valerie is going to be elaborating a little bit more on the foundational approach. Go ahead, Valerie.
Thank you, Angela. Yes, as a master herbalist, this is a topic that is very much of interest to me. And so we're going to start off with 2 examples. One, we're going to think of the oil light comes on in your car when you're driving down the road. So do you think the ideal scenario would be oh my goodness, we got a red light here. What we need to do is reach into our purse, pull out a Band-Aid and cover it up, and voila, the problem is fixed? Or is it really? Do you think if you kept on driving with that Band-Aid over that oil light, that you would never have an issue with your engine? Or do you think that realistically, you're probably to have numbered days with your engine till it actually seizes on you and stops to work? Now let's move on and let's look at the idea and representation of this issue with a tree. So imagine that our tree has got a section of leaves that have all turned brown and it's not thriving. Is the solution like what you did with the oil light? Is the solution to bring a can of green spray paint and to spray paint those leaves so that now you cannot tell that the tree is not healthy? Or would the solution be to actually look at, is the tree getting enough water? Is the pH in correct balance for this tree? Has any type of toxin or poison been inadvertently spilled in that area? Is someone digging in that area and hit any roots? That is a perfect example of the difference between looking at a symptomatic approach versus a foundational approach. And the getting in and looking at the actual roots of the issue as to what might be causing it is more like foundational. So the next slide, we see that kind of broken down. With Soul, we're very much about taking a foundational approach versus a symptomatic approach. Now, does that mean that if you have a headache, that maybe you might not go ahead and reach for Vertizymes and Sulflex PI and get relief, or maybe the Calm essential oil blend? No, you absolutely can do that. But in the long run, when you take a foundational approach to your health, you're looking at the whole picture, just like we did with the tree in the ideal solution, or with the car, which really we should have gone in and had the oil checked, correct? Maybe it was running low. So with foundational approach, we're looking at everything and we're working at addressing the root cause of an issue. Why is that? The reason is really simple. It's because we want to make a fundamental change in what is going on with the health of our body and support it and shore up its foundation so that hopefully in the future, not only can we overcome what's actually going on and causing the issue, but it makes us more impervious to having that issue become a problematic in the future. Whereas with the symptomatic approach, again, the example being covering up that oil light with a Band-Aid or painting the leaves green from using a green spray paint, you're looking at the symptoms. And that is the approach that so many people are used to. We get in, we cover it up. If the person has a headache, instead of doing it and working at, well, is it coming because the gut's having issues? Is it coming because I'm eating things I shouldn't eat? Is it coming because I didn't drink enough water? People typically will come in and use a pain reliever, cover it up, and then they go on with life as if nothing is going on. So it literally is a quick fix or that Band-Aid approach, and we don't get to the root of the issue. Well, with Soul and adaptogens, we have the ability to address underlying issues because adaptogens help the body to normalize for what is ideal for each individual. Adaptogens help the body to be more resilient to this outside stressors and internal stressors, whatever stressors are being thrown at the body that constantly are addressing or attacking the issue. And that, along with the plants that we have chosen to put in each of these formulas, help to maybe get in to support the liver or help to support that digestion. Otherwise, root potential issues, help those lymphatics to work better. There's so much more possibility. And when you are not having the negative impacts of stress so much on the body, you can actually get in and begin to heal and be able to heal more effectively, more quickly, and then the body mind kicks in and it's on board too. And with the Soul Naturals product line, you can be guaranteed that all your products have at least one adaptogen in them. So no matter what, you're addressing stress and allowing you to get in and start to work at that fundamental approach to healing your health and your body.
Thank you, Dr. Valerie. That was amazing. I loved every minute, and I loved hearing just the analogy of the tree. And, oftentimes we do look to just address that, not the root, but we're looking at the leaves, and we need to be looking at what's really causing the problem. So I love that.
Thank you. And I have to, because this has been recorded. I appreciate the honor, but I'm not a doctor. I'm a master herbalist.
Oh, I'm sorry. My word.
No problem.
Next, we have Lisa Tucker. She is going to be talking a little bit about her testimony.
Hello, and thanks for having me on the call this evening. It's always fun to share about our amazing soul testimonies. So mine is emergency at 10,000 feet in elevation, vital to the rescue. And I kid you not, I don't know if any of you have altitude sickness or what happens with me several times. At least 2 or 3 times now, I have gotten to high elevation and I can't breathe. I literally feel like I'm sucking air through a straw and nothing is getting into my lungs. And thank goodness, every single time this has happened, I have had 2 drinks, not only Vital, they come in little packs like this. If you're not familiar with these, they're little powder and packages. But this other one, Excel, I've had both of these on me and I dump them into my water bottle or water container. And within minutes, I mean, very, very quickly, I'm able to get the air in my lungs that I need so I can continue on and keep hiking so I'm not stranded. There's been a few times where I thought, I am not sure I'm going to make it. And so it really has felt like an emergency situation to me that was resolved in a matter of minutes and giving my body what it needs, as opposed to an inhaler or something like that that's going to be harmful to my lungs. So that is my emergency story, and I'm very thankful for both of those products.
What an amazing testimony. I love hearing all that. Thank you so much, Lisa. All right, next we have Greg Halliday, who's going to be speaking a little bit more in depth. He is our Soul Naturals president and founder.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good to be here. Thanks, Angela. And I love listening to the experiences. Yes, Vital is very Christmassy, isn't it? It's very seasonal. So it's kind of interesting. It is green, as was mentioned earlier. And the reason it's green is because it has a very concentrated form of chlorophyll. As we all know, chlorophyll is part of all green plants, and even some that are kind of greenish. There's some algae in different hues that, there are different types of chlorophyll. But it is really interesting to me if we could somehow pull ourselves up into the stratosphere and just look at the Earth after the blue of the water. When you get to a certain point where you could see plant life, green is far and away the dominant color, far and away, because chlorophyll is that pigment in everything, in all green leafy plants. And I like to think about that for a second. Why is that? And when we start to read a little bit about chlorophyll and digest a little bit about the studies, they're in the last 100 years, because they're not super recent. There are many really recent studies, but this was started a while ago. This isn't like a brand new thing, and yet I think it is. I think a small percentage of the world's population has the kind of information that they should have about chlorophyll. Because why is chlorophyll literally a game changer in health? So just a little summary of studies over the years that I've read and that had weight on our minds as we put this formula together. Chlorophyll binding to harmful chemicals, lots of different studies where it will bind to them, to certain metals, to abnormal cell-causing substances known to be part of eating meat. Lots of studies on that one. In fact, one study I was just reading the other day, all they did was take 3 times a day, 100 milligrams of a certain form of chlorophyll, the water-soluble form of chlorophyll, which is also included in Soul Vital in a full amount, in a full dose, concentrated amount. And so they did this for 3 times a day in this particular study, and they showed the markers cut in half over several months. So 3 times a day, several months, people eating a lot of red meats, and it was particularly abnormal cells in the colon. Okay, so lots of studies like this. Studies where I was thinking about it with the earlier testimony with the child and chemo. More and more studies, a person while they were undergoing that experience, if they added into their dietary regimen chlorophyll, feeling minimal side effects, much greater body support to endure that really harsh situation. I remember when we completed the formula was right after the Japan nuclear reactor issue. If you can think back to that, about 11 years ago-ish, 10, 11 years ago. And there were studies surfacing through there about how it's protective, radiation protective. And you think there are a lot of forms of radiation. It's really our world, honestly. This is opinion, okay? It's pretty much everywhere because of the technologies that are so impressive in helping us connect. So that there are a bunch more. Acid, if we eat a lot of sugars and things that bring acids really high in the body. Chlorophyll neutralizes odors, odors that come from a lot of situations we don't want in the roots of the tree that surface up into the branches and the bark and the leaves, to use that analogy. Chlorophyll, great neutralizer. Inflammation, which we know is associated with really all health imbalance. In other words, really, it's not any coincidence that green is this dominant, chlorophyll is this dominant color in nature, and it doesn't get more rootsy. If you want to feed the roots, it just doesn't get more rootsy. I don't care what we're talking about. It doesn't get more rootsy than chlorophyll. So it's a reason, that's why it's in Soul Vital. That's why Soul Vital was the first product. And we have 4 different kinds. So that's the other part that I wanted to share. Because people are like, well, pick one and give us well, chlorophyll for many years, I was around it being sold in a liquid because it's really convenient that way. You can just squirt it in your drinks. But if you put it in a liquid in 48 hours, it'll be less than 10% the potency that it is dry powder extracted. And that's the only reason we didn't go liquid. And so that's why people, when they'd start using Vital, which is stored sealed in powder, you mix it up and you're drinking it within usually a few hours, right? You can still drink it next day, of course, but when you drink it more quickly, you're probably getting, just by that simple math I just shared, 15 to 20 times what you'd normally get if you had used chlorophyll in a liquid state. And then that would be if you just had the same chlorophyll. We actually use 2 very high quality double sources for the water soluble chlorophyll, which is sodium, copper, chlorophyll, 2 different sources, not just one. And then we include 2 other plants that they are among the highest in their category, if not the highest in chlorophyll, in the normal fat soluble state. So you have 2 and 2. That's why there are 4 in there. And they do double roll because they are also herbs that happen to be really good for lungs, for heart, for other vital organs in our body because of other components they have in it, in addition to the chlorophyll. So lots of thought, a couple of years after 20 years being around it, a couple of additional years went into that formula on top of all the others, and why we chose what we chose. And honestly, it's been 10 years now. And that's something that has exceeded what we thought it would do. Soul Vital and the chlorophylls, and that's just 1/3 of the formula, that chlorophyll group. But I think it makes sense to talk about it today. Super foundational. It's a game changer, super safe in whatever quantities, whatever age, whatever situation, and underestimated. That's the last word I'll leave with it on chlorophyll, underestimated. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Greg. I love just learning. You're just a book of knowledge, just the 4 different chlorophyll blends and just all the thought that really goes into the whole process. And for me and my family, we honestly just feel so much better with it. And it's truly amazing. So thank you so much for that great info. And would you be able to elaborate a little bit more about the SMART plan?
Yes, hard pivot. And now over to how Soul is set up. I just have to say this, if you're listening for the first time, why do we bounce so quickly between health and your own business? Because it's about personal empowerment and sharing all the education, all the knowledge that comes through us so that everyone has it. And the same thing with a business, so that you have a business that you're able to lead and choose how you do it. The SMART plan's really at the root of our philosophy with Soul, really both with health and in life, which is this deep belief in people, that when we get information, we have inside us the ability to make really good decisions for ourselves and others. We need each other to, I don't know, shore up places where we might not be as strong as others. And that's where networking comes in. I believe we need each other. But also the plan itself is structured to be very individual. So the SMART plan itself, if you were to boil it down, it's taking commissions that happen every time anyone you might have referred or who they might have referred kind of like a genealogy tree that can in any way connect up through you. It takes these orders and the totals, we total the volumes all throughout the branches of your business tree. And what we do each month with the Smart Plan is we just simply maximize it for you. Instead of pre-assigning percentages, which was very common forever, for decades in our industry, we do predetermine the percentages in total that we can pay so that the company has this longevity, but we don't pre-assign them. So the percentages are fixed. We know what they'll be, but we don't know where they'll be applied. And I can tell you the secret. They'll be applied in descending order where you have the most activity. The highest percent being matched to the most, the second highest being matched to the second most, and so on. In other words, they're just simply maximized. So a lot of people ask us, why'd we do this? What was the thought process in Smart Plan? Why didn't you just list it out like virtually all the companies? Even now, 10 years later, I don't know another plan like this. The reason is it's now over 30 years that I've been around this. And what I've seen, I was before Valerie and I were together in a company for many years that's now coming up on 50 years old. And what I saw over time is that life never goes exactly the way you see it going. It always brings twists and turns, and it's the same thing in a business. Where your business will grow will often surprise you. And so when plans are delineated and percentages are stated, we often try to build our business around those. And then when things change, we can be frustrated that where we've had more success, a branch of the tree that succeeded more, that happens to be a lower percentage. Well, in the Smart Plan, since it evaluates every single month now, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 30 years, it will always follow wherever your growth goes. In other words, it was a way, we feel like it was a light bulb moment. It was a way for someone at the start to have success because it maximizes wherever the volume begins, and equally in 40 and 50 years, still be maximizing for them. It solves the whole problem in the industry of companies that pay a lot at the first, but as you develop in depth, they pay very little, or the reverse. Companies that pay very little at first, but they need you to get to depth before they'll pay you bigger. The Smart Plan doesn't have any of those contingencies because it simply maximizes. So it's not super easy to talk about in a sentence or two, but that's the nutshell. It basically follows you. So it's the most customized compensation system that we've ever heard of. We had not heard of it. We actually had to build it. But even 10 years later, it still is the most customized. And people wondered, we had our programmers, I'll give you a little nugget at the start going, this can't be done. Nobody's doing this. And there was one in particular who said, I actually think it can. So it went from theory 10 years ago to, yes, it works quite well. And here we are 10 years later. And I would tell you the same thing. The Smart Plan really is a good design to work around where you are at the start and continue to work around to maximize many years out into the future.
Thank you so much, Greg. I love how creative that you guys got in the whole thought process with everything. We appreciate it. All right, next up we have Krista Shepard, and she's going to be sharing a little bit about her testimony.
There we go. It didn't want to unmute at first. Sorry about that. So I get to talk about the business, and actually it's funny, right? I'm sitting here listening to Greg, who, I mean, I love listening to, and he fits right in about what I'm talking about. And I didn't talk to Greg today at all. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So for years, I thought I had to hustle hard, and in order to be successful, you had to continue to be working, and that something in your life always had to give. Something would always suffer, right? And unfortunately, because my husband's awesome and my biggest supporter, it was often time with Brian, right? I would hustle, like Grace would go to bed and I'd hustle after that. I wouldn't take time for my family. So this year, I decided to flip the script. I invested in me. I learned how to live and work with more heart and less hustle. It was a quote from one of my coaches. And you see, if we're just trying to sell, right, people will see right through us. But if we're truly investing in our hearts and lead with our hearts and invest into people, they will not only be faithful clients, but they'll also be a great source of referrals. And I think that's really, I think that's awesome. The way Soul has evolved right now with this new referral program, like it just makes it easier in some ways to even run our businesses. I remember being at a Soul event and I was asking, but I wanted to know how I could scale my business big. I was going to and I'm not saying it's not going to happen, because we're still going to look in the future as things happen, as the naturopathy school does want me to present there in the future. And I was like, how do I do that? Like, how do I scale? And I can't remember, Greg, I apologize if it was you. I can't remember if it was you or Jordan. And you said, be yourself. Remember why you loved me. I love the products, and grow organically. Right? Like there is no magic secret. So not only do I love the Soul business, but I love that it's helped me slow down and work with more heart and less hustle. And I'm going to quote Greg at the end, which was not planned, and talk about the personal empowerment that Soul gives us.
Love that. I love hearing all of that, Krista, and it just really resonates with me as well. So, and I'm sure many people watching this too. But yeah, it's amazing how you just kind of brought that into your own. So for any of you guys just kind of thinking out there, is this something for me? There's an amazing Soul opportunity. We have these amazing new kits that they created for us, and different levels that you can actually join, depending on how serious you want to be about running your business, or if you just want to share this casually with friends and get your family and friends healthy. I think that's where we all originally started, is we wanted to get us and our own families healthy, and then just kind of spread the love from there. So definitely reach out to the person that invited you. And next up, we have our Soul to Soul trip that's coming up next December. It is going to be in Costa Rica, and we would love to have you join us. So reach out to the person that invited you and find out how you can be coming with us. And last is we would love to hear from you. So if you have a story, which I'm sure you do, or you know of a friend that has one regarding your soul story, or we would love to hear it. So please reach out to us, as we love hearing all these unique testimonies. So again, if you guys are not a part of the Stories of Hope, be sure that you actually text this number, HOPE, to the number below, and that will get you all the updates of our live videos and all the details there as well. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us. And until next week, we'll see you then.